But in Suffolk, a pair of GOP incumbents won re-election, Congressman Andrew Garbarino and the man who joins us now from Washington, Congressman Nick LaLota. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thanks for the invitation to be on, Rich.
All right, so first let's talk about your race, spirited campaign against your challenger, John Avlon. In the end, you won by a healthy margin. What do you attribute it to?
Talking with the voters, not at them. We campaigned on issues that we thought mattered to voters, securing the border, putting the economy back on track, lowering prices, reasserting America's stance on the world stage, getting our SALT back, rejecting a national abortion ban. We spoke from a position of truth and strength and candor. And the other side wanted to focus on their hatred of Donald Trump and lies about abortion. And at the end, Long Islanders were able to sift through those lies and that subterfuge and pleasantly reelect me in my second term. And I'm so appreciative about that.
When you look at the results across the state, specifically in the presidential race, yes, Kamala Harris won New York, but Donald Trump gained in almost every place in the state, even in Democratic strongholds, and far outpaced his performance 4 years ago. What does that tell you about the future of Republican politics in New York State?
Well, I can say that there's a bit of an inversion going on with the parties. Republicans are certainly more pro-labor, pro-worker, common sense. We understand what we think are the needs of our constituents, and we want to campaign and, more importantly, govern on those. It seems that the other side is more focused on men and girls sports, lies about abortion, lies about the border, and we'll continue to tell the truth, and we think that will help continue to put wind in our sails in future elections.
Donald Trump had a convincing victory. Republicans have a convincing control of the Senate. But in the House, it's going to be a slim majority again. You know what the last 2 years were like. You lived through it in more ways than one. But how does the future outlook look here in terms of being able to get things done on Capitol Hill with Republicans having a slim majority?
Yeah, so while certainly the context of the previous Congress had some chaos in it, I think that what will unite all the members of the House, the Republican members of the House, this Congress, is the agenda. We all campaigned on, and certainly Donald Trump campaigned on, securing the border, fixing the economy, and reasserting America's stance on the world stage. That's something that every House Republican believes very strongly in. I think that's going to unite us going forward to ensure that when we put pen to paper on legislation on how to effectuate better outcomes for our constituents all throughout the country, those agendas will unite us for this Congress.
And the current Congress, when a speaker was finally determined, it was Kevin McCarthy. He was a weakened speaker. This time it seems like Republicans are unified behind Speaker Johnson. We know you support him. Is that the sense that you have?
Yeah, in fact, just a day or two ago, we took a vote here in Washington affirming him to be our speaker designate for the 119th Congress. And we're also going to increase the motion to vacate from just one member up to 9. Which will provide our leadership the stability it needs to have continuity so that when we want to pass bills, even tough bills, that the speaker doesn't have to live under the threat of one individual ousting. That's an improvement from last Congress, which should help benefit the American people.
You'll be entering your second term in Congress, and it'll be the first time that you have served alongside a Republican president, of course. What have you thought so far of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections? They have certainly raised some eyebrows, some of them, others, familiar faces like Lee Zeldin, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Perhaps I have a couple of New Yorkers, one Long Islander, Lee Zeldin, a New Yorker, and Elise Stefanik, prospectively serving in the cabinet. I think that'll do the country and New York quite well. Some others are gaining some headlines. The president-elect has nominated a bunch of folks who are gaining some headlines. But I'm confident that the president will have a cabinet able to execute on his agenda, which will benefit the American people. There'll be lively Senate confirmation hearings where tough questions will be able to be asked amongst the nominees. And I think that'll be to the public's benefit.
One of the nominees is Matt Gaetz, the now former congressman for Attorney General. You've served alongside of him. And what struck me in thinking about speaking with you today and then about Matt Gaetz is thinking back to George Santos, when you pushed perhaps harder than anyone to make sure Santos would be expelled from the House. It was Gaetz who stood side by side with Santos, and now Santos is saying he will go to hell and back to make sure he becomes the next Attorney General, meaning Matt Gaetz. What are your thoughts on the Gaetz selection?
I'm not sure if George Santos is going to go to hell, but he's certainly going to go to prison here real soon, so we look forward to that. But nevertheless, on Gates. It's been well documented. I am not his biggest fan. A little surprised by the nomination. Many members are relieved that he resigned from Congress subsequent to his nomination. That is going to be one heck of a confirmation hearing in the Senate. Gates is going to have to answer for allegations about him not only sleeping with a 17-year-old, but paying for it, and some of his other conduct. I don't know if the Senate's going to confirm him. A number of senators have already said that he's not the right guy for that position. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, Rich.
Do you think his nomination and a few others potentially threaten the Trump administration incoming here to be able to hit the ground running when the president-elect does take office?
No, the president's a bulldog. He's going to power through a lot of things. Maybe not all those nominees like Gates get through, but he's surely going to be able to accomplish his agenda and put our country back on the right path. Of course, Trump has every right to nominate who he wants, and the Senate has every right, if not an obligation, to provide advice and consent on that path. So there's a governmental process. It's a two-step dance. The president nominates, the Senate provides advice and consent, and that's how the president will be able to form his cabinet. And I trust that in time that'll be for the benefit of the country.
Well, as you look to work with your Republican colleagues in Washington on Capitol Hill to advance the ideals that you ran on, it is a Democrat initiative that's taken center stage this week, specifically here in New York. Congestion pricing, Congressman. Governor Hochul bringing back congestion pricing, unpausing the pause, I guess you could say. But President Trump has said he's against this. What are you doing in Congress to potentially push back against this? I know you've been very vocal and outspoken against it.
Yeah, so Governor Hochul was widely known to be one of the weakest governors in the country, and now she apparently is one of the most dishonest ones too. She told New Yorkers before Election Day, no, this was off of the table. That was her words. And to few people's surprise, she was lying when she put it back on the table after Election Day. A total political stunt, which Washington policymakers, both Republican and Democrat, should kill. There are a number of ways to do it. One of them is through the appropriations process. The MTA, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, gets a lot of money from the federal government. That money should be contingent on killing this ill-fated program that merely seeks to pick the pockets of suburban New Yorkers to pay for the largesse inside of the five boroughs. Kathy Hochul wants to send billions for migrants into the five boroughs. She wants to take from us to pay for that bloated MTA. We shouldn't tolerate it. She's trying to cut from school funding and raise our taxes and deplete our infrastructure to pay for that largesse, specifically on the migrants and the MTA. We should all, in unison, every Republican, every Democrat, federal and state who represents the New York suburbs, should stand against Hochul and her lies.
Is it your sense that the push against this, if it were to be stopped, would have to come from the White House or from the Congress?
My understanding, Rich, there's two different paths. One through the congressional appropriations process, and then two through the Federal Highway Authority. There's another way to do it as well. We should pursue solutions in parallel, both the executive and legislative branch. And I know there's plenty of folks eager and willing and able to put a stop to this. Because you know what, like Long Islanders, we pay a lot. Highest cost of living, highest taxes, everything else. And we have enough to pay for inside of our own counties. We shouldn't also have to pay for the largesse inside of New York City as well.
We know there are Republicans and Democrats in New Jersey, Connecticut, Westchester, who are voicing similar thoughts to what you just laid out there. Congressman Nick LaLota, we appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us a few minutes from Washington.
Thanks a bunch, Rick. Be well.